Divine Spirit is everywhere and always present. It is here in this very place, in this very moment. It makes itself known through us and by means of us. There is nowhere that Spirit is not. Spirit is our perfection. If we ever forget who we really are, it only takes an instant to remember. In an instant, we can return home to our truth. Today, in the truth, in our truth, in this truth, in truth, we celebrate our oneness in thought, in word, and in action. Good morning, religious scientists.
Good morning.
Good morning. I was at a meeting on Thursday in Encinitas with a bunch of ministers, Southern California. And when you get together with a bunch of ministers and everybody's in alignment and excited, it's the first little ministerial meeting since the oneness of the CSL. It was hard to not leave there feeling totally engaged in what we do. And we were reminded that we're religious scientists. We believe in a philosophy that we know works, and we stand behind it. So don't go no one run for the door when I say that. We are religious scientists, and we believe in the practice and the philosophy of the science of mind. In our reading today, we're reading the Science of Mind textbook, and we have a little chunk every day. And last week I said how many are reading along with us, and almost everybody raised their hand. This week you may have given up, I'm not sure. But the last couple of days, last week, have been about practitioner work. And so I read through the material, and it came to me, and I wanted to say, the reading for today, which is pages 204 to 207 in the Science of Mind textbook, might be the most important passage in our whole philosophy. In our whole philosophy, what we read today might actually be, to me, the absolute truth of what our teaching is and the key to understanding and practicing your greater good. And so I wanted to distill it out with a few of Ernest Holmes' quotes and then kind of express why I think it's so perfect, so powerful. And he has two conversations going on in the reading. One is about the person, you, and the way that your mind works and how powerful your mind is. And then he talks about how the practitioner minds work. And so we have practitioners in our center that are spiritual guides, spiritual counselors, and they have practiced in our license and our philosophy, and they work with you to manifest your good. And they do the same thing that you do on your own, but they're just maybe more practiced, or maybe when you're in the midst of your issues, they see you more perfect than you might see yourself at that moment. So for the individual first, Ernest Holmes talks, and he says, and this is for yourself, when you're giving a treatment, you are thinking, and we know that. We have 5 steps, and we're doing all the 5 steps in our mind. He says, when you're giving a treatment, you are thinking. You are meeting, opposing, neutralizing, erasing, and obliterating, powerful words, suppression, fear, doubt, failure, morbid emotion, and a sense of loss, whatever the trouble may be. And so in your treatment work, the first thing you do is obliterating anything of the negative. Anything that's not your highest good, it's evaporating. I love the word evaporating. In my own treatment, I use that word a lot. I like the idea of it just dispersing and gone. Every time your thought hits fairly and squarely, isn't that nice? Anytime you get that, anytime your thought hits fairly and squarely, what would that mean? You knowing your truth. So when your thought gets to that moment of your truth, it erases just as definitely as one would erase a chalk line. You can see that. Such is the mystery of the appearance and the disappearance of thought. That, to me, that last statement is so powerful. The mystery of the appearance and the disappearance of thought. You guys can have a thought 1 minute with an emotion with it, like a down thought, and really in the next instant it can shift everything. You can have a positive, upbeat thought, and your whole experience goes positive and upbeat. More often it's the other way around. You're really feeling good, and then one little thing gets in your way. It's a thought. It may be an experience, but the experience is creating a thought in your mind, and it can bring you way down. Is that not correct? I mean, I know that from my life. I think we're pretty common in that experience. And so in our practice, we start to think, well, if we can go from a really great moment and a great thought to a really downtrodden moment and feeling beat up, why couldn't we take charge of that, look at our thought, and switch that around and move from that tough place to that great place? And that's what we do in our science of mind work. We take a look at what our thoughts are, we see that they may not be serving us to our greatest good, and we switch them around in an instant. And as we get better at this, the positive thought and then therefore the positive emotion and the positive effect get quicker and quicker and quicker till it becomes instantaneous. Okay? So that's for ourselves. Now he goes on to talk about the practitioner. And he says, and this is really, really interesting, he says the practitioner is in the same mind in which the patient or client or person is and lives. Consequently, since each one of us is in that same one mind, the patient who is sick is in the same medium and in the same sense in the same mind in which the practitioner lives. So if the person is having an issue in the one mind, the practitioner is right in that same mind, in that same realm. And because this mind is indivisible, this is our teaching, is indivisible, the practitioner can, in his own mentality, reach the thought that causes the patient to be sick. Whatever we say, whatever we say he sends out a thought, or that he simply realizes a thought, makes no difference. The simplest way is to say that the practitioner realizes within himself or herself upon the one mind, through the one medium, in the one law. Now that's a little hard to grasp, but the suggestion is that since we are all moving in the one mind, when we raise our thoughts up, in a sense they commingle at that level. Okay? See, this was a little bit of a challenging part of the reading, especially if you're not trained in what a practitioner is. You're reading this material and going, wow, what is that? And how do I achieve that? He says the practitioner realizes a certain truth for his patient within himself. Therefore, he sets the law in motion for his patient. This is the key. The practitioner knows within himself, and this self-knowingness rises into the consciousness of his patient. That's pretty deep. And I didn't want not to bring that up this morning because it's such a richness of our science of mind teaching. If any of that really piques your interest, you should be taking classes and move on your path to becoming a practitioner. I think I would speak for all the practitioners in the room. This part of our science and philosophy is really intriguing, and we get captivated by it. We want to understand where our mind is within the one, and where the other person's mind is within the one, and how working together we both raise our consciousness up to this place where there's a sharing of truth, a knowingness of truth. Now that actually might sound easy, but if the client or the patient is in a tough place, feeling really sad about their situation and maybe blocked, how do you arrive in that one mind, in the consciousness where they're ready to receive their good that you know is theirs? And that's the benefit of having a practitioner session, because they know your truth and they will help you get there in that same way. And Ernest Holmes says this last comment, before we do a prayer together. He says, when we stop to realize how subtle thoughts are, how unconsciously we think negation, you get that? Most of us, as a pattern in our lives, think negation. How easy it is to get down and out mentally, we shall see that each is perpetuating his own condition. This is why people go from bad to worse or from success to greater success.